Scrappy peeps, Suzanna here today, and I'm joining my friend Christine for a mixed media technique series. Today I'm going to show you how to blend Distress Oxide inks. So these are the two colors that I'm using, Fired Brick and Fossilized Amber. And basically what you want to do is you want to spray the color on your mat and then add water from a spray mister to that as well. And you want to continue to add water until the color bubbles. So you want to see pools, not pools, but bubbles of color. So you'll see me here add water, and you see how the color bubbles up and it collects in little pools of color. And then what you want to do is you want to take your cardstock and or watercolor paper and you want to drag this through the color that is on your mat. Now, I am not a mixed media artist by any stretch of the imagination, nor is Christine, but she and I both like to explore and use mixed media to enhance what we do on our scrapbook layouts. So this series this week and next week is to show you ways of using mixed media techniques that you can incorporate into your scrapbooking. So you can see here that I keep pulling the paper through the color. Now, what Tim Holtz and Ranger and all of the mixed media experts suggest that you do is, and in order to really get the truest pop of color from your Distress Oxides, you want to dry your paper between each layer and application. The difference between Distress Oxide inks and Distress inks is that Distress Oxide inks are a mix of both pigment and dye inks. And so this gives you the best of both worlds. The Distress ink allows you to stack pigment layer upon layer, and that way you aren't just getting muddied colors by continuously layering the color as I'm doing here. I don't dry my layers in between, partly because I don't feel that I really need to for what it is that I'm doing. Again, I'm not creating an entire background. This could be a background for a card, and I have done that before, but my plan for these is to run them through my Big Shot and use them as embellishments on my scrapbook layout. So now I wanted more distinct splatters of color. And so another thing that you can do is use a fan brush or just a regular brush, but I like the way that the fan brush gives me a much wider scope. And I just drag that through the color. And if I needed a little more juiciness to the color that I have on my mat, you can just spray that with water. And then I just ran my finger along the bristles. And again, because I wanted more of a splatter effect, I just picked up the color and flicked my brush at the paper, and you can see how that is giving me Distress Oxide splatters on top of the Distress Oxide that I have already laid down. And this is a great way, again, you can create card backgrounds if you want. This would be a great paper layer behind a photograph. The other thing about Distress Oxide inks, it also works with Distress inks, is if you take water and you splatter it or pool it if you want bigger color removal, and then you saw me wipe it with the paper towel, that picks up the color and it gives it sort of that galaxy look to it. And there's a close-up of what the finished paper looks like when you've layered and layered and layered. And you can see some straight lines there, and you can also see that it's also got a mottled effect to it. So I let these dry. I just air dried them. If you want to, you can dry them with a heat set tool. And I have two dies here. One is the outline of a butterfly, and then one is the more finer detail that I'm going to just do in white cardstock. And I also will do one in black cardstock so you can see the difference between the two, that will then overlay on top of the Distress Oxide blended background that I created. There's the white. and then later in the close-up picture you will see the black. So just a quick and easy way that you can use Distress Oxide inks to create embellishments for your scrapbook layouts. Next week I'm going to show you a video on how I use Distress Oxide inks, a template, a stencil, and some embossing powder to create a 12 by 12 background for a layout. I am also going to share another video later this week, on Thursday, using Distress Stain. So be sure to check back in for that, and don't forget to check out Christine's videos. Thanks for joining us today. Take care.